Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I want to welcome you. Wait, actually, I'm not going to welcome you yet because I'm just jumping on this to let you know that this is the first episode that we ever did in person for the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. Just wanted to give you a really quick little heads up on that. I'm going to actually say the same thing in just a second and explain everything, but I just want to make sure you pay attention or stay till the very end of the episode because Eric, who I am interviewing at the time of the interview, is a brown belt. I was well aware that by the time the episode came out, he was going to be a black belt. So I decided to put his short and sweet black belt speech at the end of it, the whole ceremony. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, should be able to see all of it at the end. And I think you guys will really like it. I think you guys will really enjoy it. And hopefully it'll be helpful for you. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into the episode. Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 80 of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. So today, maybe I sound a little bit different to you guys. Maybe you watch on the YouTube, the Instagrams, and you were like, hey, this setup isn't near as cool as his office setup, and there's two dudes in the frame right now. And so we are just running a little experiment where we are going to do an in-person podcast. And so we built this new studio, if you guys don't know, with Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu. And right now we're just dead center of where we would be filming jiu-jitsu videos with a table that I borrowed from my church that has crayon and what looks like dried Sprite on it. And so we just decided we were going to wing it. It was just going to be the first one that we do in person. It's a perfect in-person podcast, probably one of the most requested. And I'm not just saying that because he's much bigger than me and he's actually here. But probably one of the most requested podcasts to have back or guests to have back. And that is my student, Eric Hebner. If you guys watched the first one, you know that I've been calling him Eric Huebner for the last 7-8 years. And apparently his last name is Hebner. So Eric, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that we got the podcast going. We got cameras rolling. Hopefully there is video of this.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. It's just, I'm a black belt in one thing. And there's this weird thing in jiu-jitsu. There's a weird thing when you have a black belt. People ask you questions about everything.
You're the all-knowing.
Dude, people will ask me, students will come in and be like, yeah, I got my W-2s today. What do you think I should do with them? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I don't pay taxes.
Right.
You know? I don't know how that stuff works.
Yeah.
And so, it's just, you do become, what is that, omniscient when you get your black belt.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans when it comes to you getting your black belt? Any thoughts, any first competition, anything like that? If you were under a coach that would ever promote you.
Yeah, so first off, I'm never getting that.
Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page.
I do. I am 100% going to stick to my guns this time and only compete big.
Okay.
At black belt for the first year at least. Pans, worlds, that kind of thing, and really focus on the tournaments instead of, I need 10 matches before I get there. I need 15 matches. I need to do 4 tournaments before I go to Worlds, and I don't want to break myself down any more than I need to physically. So really planning on just 1 to 2 tournaments, but the biggest ones I can get to.
Yeah, man. So is there the reason probably is because your body is beat up. You've been competing since 3.
Yeah, right.
And so when did you start wrestling?
I believe I was 4. Maybe 5. I don't know.
And so did they just, once you started, did you wrestling, it's not like there are a lot of non-competitors in jiu-jitsu. That doesn't happen in wrestling.
No, you compete.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were in that sport to win it.
And
So.
and so you go in and you start wrestling. What is your first? Do you have a first memory of wrestling?
I do.
What is it?
I really do. With my actual first match ever, against a guy from Granite, still a friend of mine, TJ Nance. It was both of our first matches ever.
How old are you?
I think we're both 4.
Okay.
And I remember this like it was yesterday. For some reason, I beat him, and I was crying so bad because I thought I lost. And I didn't realize I won until my dad told me in the bleachers, because I was like running off the mat, crying hysterically because I just lost. Well, I didn't. Yeah, that was my first match ever. It's kind of weird.
It's really interesting to coach at. I've never coached wrestling. I'm sure it's the same way. But when you coach at jiu-jitsu tournaments and they put you on the kids mat, you start. That's why I don't, or not coach, ref.
Okay.
This is why I don't ref anymore. Because no matter what, at least one kid will be crying when you're like 8 and under. But usually it's both kids. The anxiety, like, it starts to build up. I remember vividly one of my students, and she was a little older, maybe she was 9, and she had lost her first like 7 matches or something. She had lost a bunch of her first matches, and it was just, she was very nervous. She would cry every time. She didn't want to do it anymore. Like, okay, you don't have to do it. And then like she comes out and she's going to compete again. She wanted to compete every time. And she told me like, hey, if I lose, I'm not going to cry. I was like, oh, that's really good. Well, she hadn't mentally prepared for what if she won. And so she went out and she won, and it was really close. It was really, really rough. And she gets her hand raised and she started crying because she was on that same like,
oh, that poor girl.
Yeah, it was it was stressful for her. You have 2 daughters. Do you think that either of them will ever do jiu-jitsu?
So I do kind of. I really took a lot from what Ryan Ford had said on your previous podcast about, his child in jiu-jitsu. And, I've really wanted that to make that a goal of mine, to say, okay, I'm going to implement what Ryan just said. That is huge. As far as, I'm not going to make him come to practice 5 days a week. That's not, I don't care if they compete in jiu-jitsu. I really don't. I want them to compete in a sport that they love. But they will 100% learn jiu-jitsu. Whether that takes 20 years of them doing it, if they're under my roof once a week, when the time comes available, once a week, they will be coming to jiu-jitsu practice. And I'm, again, like I said before, that will be a forcible thing in my house. You will learn how to defend yourself, and you don't have to compete, but you will learn how to defend yourself and learn the basics of fighting.
I think that's a really interesting, just a really interesting thought. A lot of people, they go around and they have no idea how to defend themselves.
No clue.
It's such a scary thing to think about, that like, in just any physical, imagine this. Imagine being in any physical altercation, and most likely, if you were smaller than the person, you would lose. Just that being your life. And so, to me, and I'm sure to you, having grappled forever, you kind of think about it. You kind of take it for granted that, like, man, if somebody just tried to headlock me right now, I would be absolutely fine. I always tell my wife, like, we're in a mall, like, hey, that if it in the gi IBJJF Jiu-Jitsu tournament just broke out right now, I would win.
Yeah.
That, right? And,
absolutely.
And so
get your grips and pull.
Exactly. Like I would advantage everybody in here. No one would even be close.
Until the authorities came over, I would hold them down.
I would lock them up in 50-50 and go sweep, fall back, sweep, fall back.
Sure.
Dude, it would be ridiculous. They just don't understand. And so, like, there's so many people, though, that don't know how to defend themselves.
Right.
Do you have any time that you have had to use? I'm not asking, have you been in any fights, Eric? Because I know for a fact that you have been in fights.
Yeah.
But has there been a time that you have had to use self-defense, in just the real world?
No.
Has there been a time that
No.
that you have used jujitsu in a, let's not call it a fight,
Okay. And
but let's say that there are
a very physical discussion.
a very physical discussion, because we don't fight, we don't believe in that.
No.
We're peacemakers, and so has there ever been a time that you have had to use jujitsu, and we can call it wrestle jitsu if you
Yes.
want, in an
A
altercation?
combat sport.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, I have. In that question, yes, I have. In self-defense, no. But yes, when you ask me that way, yes, I have used jujitsu in a physical argument.
In a physical argument. Is this discussable, or was this like on your wife or something like
Oh
that?
my gosh, no.
Okay, good.
No, yeah, the last actual, we're going to call it a fight. The last actual fight I got into it was 10 years ago. And we were, imagine this, at a bar.
It's interesting.
Yeah, weird how it started there.
I've never actually, this is a really interesting scenario. I've never heard of anyone getting in a fight.
Yeah,
Continue.
weird. Especially being a big guy at a bar. Nobody tries the big guy at a bar. And me and a group of friends were out one evening, and our wives were there, our girlfriends at the time, wives, whatever the case may be. And guess what happens? This other group of guys were also there without their significant others. So they try to hit on our women.
Mm-hmm.
Every fight starts that way, I guess, pretty much.
They all have to do with women.
Yes, women, weakened legs. But anyways, things got heated. I actually threw the first punch and then got out of it all scot-free. But yeah, I threw the first punch, and then it was about 8-on-8 after that. So being able to control I called it controlling the room, I hit the first guy. He goes down. We were actually really scared because he started seizuring. That was pretty scary point in my life. And then here come everybody else, and my buddies are coming after them. So I'm getting a wave of dudes getting ready to come beat the crap out of me. And my buddies come and save me, and I end up kind of scuffling with two guys. One's trying to hold me. I end up getting hit with a pool stick in the ribs. And anyways, as that's playing out, I kind of hit like a back tripped this guy on his back, fell on top of him. The other guy comes down. I kind of lock him up in like a half guard. Get the underhook, take his back, hold the other guy down, with one hand. I'm still getting hit, right? But I'm still controlling the situation, right? I was controlling where I was at, until my other friend cold cocked the other guy.
All right.
So yeah, that was back in the day. I have not been in a physical altercation in a very long time, but that was a crazy fight.
Yeah, I now that I step back and I think about, did you ever have to use self-defense? I could assume that the answer would be no,
Right.
Because I guess unless it was a situation where you were being mugged or something like
Right,
that,
yeah.
usually 265-pound guy is not who you go to,
Right.
Unless
you have buddies behind you.
Yes, that is very true. So in this, that's when you retired from bar fighting.
Actually, that's the last time I ever went to that bar.
I'm guessing not by choice. I'm guessing you were not allowed to go to that bar anymore.
I was barred from there. But it wasn't my fault. They started it, okay? Let's get that on the record. They started this.
Okay.
And yeah, that was an absolute mess. But that was the last time I have talked a little crap to some guys and backed it up on the mat with some people, but never, outside of a gym, outside of anything like that, something like that. So glad those days are over.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So in the future, what do you kind of think? And we've discussed this, you and I, and we actually did get into it a little bit on the last podcast, but I just like to get a little deeper into it. What do you think that will be? You've been a brown belt for what, 7 years, 8 years, something like that. You probably are getting towards the end of your brown belt
One
career.
would think.
Yeah, maybe. So you probably are getting towards it. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Not like I have any say in it. But you're getting towards the end of it. What do you think, just in general, not competitively, that black belt might hold for you?
I'm really interested in working with police departments. I have never done it, but I'm really interested in starting something like that. Just on the side, not like I'm coaching this program.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. Just when I get my black belt, I've said this in the past. I don't like to do. I've been asked twice to do a seminar. Both times I've said no. And it's simply because I don't have my black belt.
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable doing that, and I don't know if it's just something in my head or what, but
Yeah.
I don't want to teach a bunch of guys that I don't know and still have a brown belt around my waist. Maybe it's just in my head, but that's my thing. But yeah, it's something new I want to try is seminars and is working with police departments, randomly when they have questions or if they just want to learn some jiu-jitsu or learn some holds or something like that, basic combat fighting. That's something I'm really interested in doing later.
Why is that? What's the reason behind that?
So I've never in my life, since I was 16 years old and started getting pulled over, actually before that, when I started getting in a little bit of trouble with the police, I've never had a good interaction with a police officer. Ever. I've never had a police officer come to me at my window and say, "Hey, sir, license and registration, and everything went smooth. I get my ticket or I get my warning and I go on my way." It's always they have an attitude. I have an attitude. Something happens to where the situation is escalated. You know what I mean? And seeing everything that's going around the world now with police officers, I fully support cops. I really do. I think they have an unbelievably tough career, with what they can and can't do. Right. And every situation I'm sure is different, and every situation, especially arresting someone, is going to be different. The things they have to deal with, the things they have to deal with on a daily basis, whether they're walking up on a this guy's going 13 miles an hour over the speed limit, or he runs a stop sign. It's a soccer mom sticker on the back of the window. That guy could die. That police officer could walk up to that minivan with a soccer sticker on the back of it and get shot in the face. To me, that's crazy that the laws and the restrictions that are put on them when they're trying to subdue someone, right? So it really makes me mad. You know what I mean? And I feel like I can do something about it.
That makes sense.
I feel like I can help on different scenarios, different situations, different body types, especially trying to arrest someone in different body types, I think is a big point of what some people don't understand. You could be arresting a 6'8", 350-pound man.
Yeah.
and he's not happy about it.
Uh-huh.
And you're by yourself waiting for backup, and this guy tackles you. I mean, I would hope that you would have enough physical ability and mental capacity to say, I can hold this guy down without killing him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
That would be the goal.
I think that is actually, it's not out yet, but my next interview that comes out was with Luigi, our buddy. And we actually got into this really deep, and he talked about just the lack of training that police officers get. And so if you think about it, I think about it in these terms maybe. When you have 2 white belts and they're brand new, and one tries to mount the other, there is so much room for error, right?
Yeah.
There's so much movement that can happen, right? And both of them are fighting very hard for that position.
Mm-hmm.
Now you get just a blue belt, and I'm not even saying a black belt. You get a blue belt that is grappling with one of those white belts, and he goes from side control to mount. The fight is about a second,
right,
and then it stops.
Right.
It stops being a fight.
Yeah.
And the reason is because they know how to control. When you know how to control somebody, they can almost recognize that very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so if, in my opinion, if police officers were taught how to control people, especially in arresting, our buddy that trains here, Ross, he and I have talked about this. And he says that's when, he goes, when people start fighting is usually like right when either that first cuff goes on or when they feel it touch them.
Right.
He said that's usually when they start resisting. And he's like, the ability to be able to control people that he has because he trains.
Yeah.
He's like, it's unheard of for a lot of police officers. And so I think that, I really think you get a group of guys that have never done any type of grappling before. You send them out. They have to arrest people. And then you say, okay, we're not going to teach you how to do anything.
Right.
But whatever you do, don't use this gun and this baton that we give you.
Right.
Because that won't be good. But we won't teach you how to not use them. Yeah. Right. And so, man, you see so many different videos online where police officers just have no idea, where there's one that's really, that shouldn't be funny, but it is hilarious. It is one of the police officers on a guy's back, and the other police officer has the other police officer in a headlock. He is headlocking the wrong person. And so, like, in those situations, if you had just grappled and just gotten to grapple live for 6 months, even if you were never taught anything, just gotten to actually grapple live. No one ever teaches you. You just get to roll live. You would have so much more comprehension and so much more ability to control somebody.
Right.
I think that that is just, it's a big problem when it comes to, situations like that.
And a lot of my friends are police officers, and they, I try to put myself in their shoes, right? I try to, when they explain a story to me about a guy who resisted, I try to put myself in their shoes, and I'm thinking, your adrenaline, because we can train all day, and you can tap me all day, you can, throw hooks, whatever. But when your life is literally on the line, I think that is the epitome of the sentence, drillers make killers. If you drill mount, let's say, for a year, in my opinion, your adrenaline goes down in this situation, right? So you are more able to control the situation in that aspect. But if you've drilled mount for 2 weeks, your adrenaline is still through the roof. You're still using every amount of strength you have because you are literally scared for your life. You do not know what this guy has yet. So that's what scares me about my friends going out there. You know what I mean? If there's a gun in the situation, different story, right? It's all, I can't help you there. You're going to have to shoot him, right? But in a hand-to-hand combat situation, I was told by another friend, basically, I need to do my part and help these guys, whatever help they need, whatever questions they need answered, and do my part.
I think, yeah, man, I think that is I really like that idea. I think I've said it on the podcast before. My dad has always said, what breaks your heart is your job to fix. And so like what bothers you is usually, especially if you already have the capability.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want people to listen to this and take anything the wrong way.
Right.
I hate cops. Okay?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I always make that joke with any of our police officers. Like I'll always, so you know.
Oh, we
just so you know, I hate cops. One of the sad things is a lot of times the response I get from other police officers is, yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And that is, and I think that is a problem. The cops that we have that train here, they're the cops that I like.
Yeah.
Because they are humble enough to say, hey, it is important for my job.
Yes.
That
my life.
And my life
Yeah.
that I learn how to grapple.
Right.
It is important, and that's kind of, I wouldn't say that if you were a police officer that like doesn't train that I hate you, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're a police officer, especially that has walked through the doors of a gym and decided like, oh, I don't want to train. Honestly, I think you're doing yourself and your community a really big disservice. You really are putting yourself in a situation that you don't need to be in. With you train twice a week, train 3 times a week, and it's fun and it is very good for you.
Right.
And there's just, like, I think it's just something that's really important. But to change notes from my hatred towards cops. So something that we dug into, not deep enough, honestly, because so many people really liked it and had thoughts on it and had questions about it, was kind of the mindset of competing.
Yeah.
And so that is something that I think, we've talked about it before. I think I asked you on the last one, but how many matches just in grappling, we'll say wrestling, jiu-jitsu, combat wrestling, everything, how many matches do you think that you have had over your lifetime?
Oh my gosh.
If you had to just put a rounded number on it.
Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. 2,000?
2,000. And
probably.
And I bet you I've had 250 grappling matches, and I still find myself learning things when it comes to mindset.
Yes.
After just 250
right.
grappling matches. And so I kind of look to your 2,000. I think that you are somebody that I've always noticed has done so well and maybe even performs better on the mat when you're competing than you do in the gym.
Right.
And I just wanted to pick your brain on that. I wanted to kind of see if you had to say, let's say this, if you had to say, what is the most important thing, number one, when it comes to mindset for a tournament, you're going to compete?
Pre-match. 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes before your match. That's when your mindset changes. I want you to be nervous, right? Because you're not going to, if you just woke up from a nap in the bleachers and you're like, I'll go again. It's not going to help you, right? But I want you to be nervous at a certain time, right? When you sign up for that tournament online, say, I'm going to Pans. I want you to look at your bracket, right? I want you to say, oh crap, I got 30 guys. I got this guy who won Abu Dhabi. I got this guy who did this. I got this guy who did this. Be nervous. Train harder, right? But then when the time comes, that nervousness needs to be over with.
Yeah.
You need to settle yourself in your head, in your body, and be like, okay, I'm here. I did it. I did the hard part. Now this is the fun part. This is where I get to show what I'm worth, and that's something I've always done. I like literally force myself to be nervous when I sign up for the tournament. So that way it's done and over with later on. I don't know. It's something I've always tried to do, especially in jiu-jitsu, because I've got 2 months to prepare for this,
Mhm.
right? And I want to be nervous. I want to get it all out of my system. That's just one of the, things that I do in my play a game with myself
Mhm.
in my head that way. But other than that, it's just trusting yourself. It's just trusting yourself, trusting your ability. You're in a weight class, you're in an age division. You know what I mean? Nobody is going to be 10 times stronger than you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's like it in my opinion, nobody is going to be 10 times stronger than you.
Yeah, yeah.
They're going to be your same skill level ish, right? Your same somewhat build and your same age.
Mhm.
So when you look at it like that, I stop caring what they can do. What we talked about last time. I don't care what they can do.
Mhm.
I'm going to try to do everything I know how to do and do it well. And that's what calms me, I think. I could say that. That's
Mhm.
what calms me is I stop worrying about everybody else. I stop worrying about what people are going to think if I lose. What are people going to think if I win?
Mhm.
What are people going to think if I do this, if I do that? It doesn't matter. Life stops for me when I hit that IBJJF arena.
Mhm.
Life stops. Nothing matters in this world except this next match.
Mhm.
And I never look ahead. I never look to see like, oh, if I beat these first two guys, then I have him in the semis. No, you got to beat those first two guys first, So looking at your bracket in that aspect is completely wrong. I also agree with the new mindset of things as far as some people say, the old way of thinking, in my opinion, the old way of thinking is, I don't care who's in my bracket. I'm just going to go out and beat them.
Mhm.
And I used to fully believe that. I used to fully believe, I don't care who they are. I'm going to go beat them. It's not like that anymore.
It is not.
It's
You're
not
right.
like that anymore. That is the wrong mindset to have, in my opinion.
Mhm.
I want you to look them up. If they've got video, watch it.
Mhm.
Watch that video. See what they're best at. If they're a wrestler, you need to know.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You need to know, and you need to know what to go in to expect. But you also need to know that you need to get your game plan started
Yeah.
before theirs. So when you put all that stuff together, your mindset will be there.
So, man, there's a few ways I can go. I'll start with this. So what is your no, okay, so I won't start with this. All right, so this is what I'll start with. If you are going to compete, because this is something that I see all the time when it comes, this is why a lot of people don't watch tape and they don't watch things, is because they watch it and they don't know what to do with the information. So let's say that you see a guy and he is probably a horrible example. Let's say we're watching tape for me, okay? Because you're not going to not wrestle somebody,
Right.
But let's say we're watching tape for me, and we see a guy that is a pretty decent wrestler,
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we see that he's not as good off his back,
Mm-hmm.
so we know if I get on top, I'm going to be able to do well.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your advice to me looking at that situation, knowing that I can kind of wrestle?
Mm-hmm.
I have a good top game. I have a good bottom game.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your thought? Because that's where people get stuck is, man, I'm kind of even on top and bottom.
Yeah.
Maybe my stand-up isn't as good. What should I do in that situation?
Yeah. So your game plan is huge,
Mhm.
right? It is a huge aspect of what you should be looking at going up against a guy, especially like in a super fight,
Mhm.
right? When you have a super fight, yes, you need to know everything he's going to do, but that's it.
Mhm.
You don't need to train the way he trains. You don't need to train to defend yourself from what he's doing.
Mhm.
Stop thinking about what he's doing. I want you to know what he's good at, but I want you to train harder at what you're better at.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yes, we could go over a game plan against one certain guy, and okay, I'm going to pull. Okay, I'm going to wrestle. Okay, I'm going to pull and sweep, whatever the case may be. But it's more of the fact of okay, I know what he has. Now I'm going to train harder.
Yeah.
And I'm going to train harder on what I know I
Mm-hmm.
can do. That's simply it. It's, yes, have a game plan against, if you have Bo Nickel, if you're getting ready to fight Bo Nickel in a jiu-jitsu match, yes, we can go over a game plan because 100% you will get taken down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we will go over a game plan,
Uh-huh.
right? But you're not going to train wrestling harder.
Mm-mm. That makes sense.
I don't want you to spend the next 4 weeks training takedowns.
It's not going to matter.
It's not going to matter.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get taken down. So train harder at what you're better at. If you feel like you can sweep this guy, like if you came to me, hey, I've got Bo Nickel, first round at Pans. Like, okay, well, let's see if we can pull, right? We'll go over game plan. We'll see if we can pull first before he shoots, because he will take you down.
Yeah.
So you take out the 2 points,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yeah, let's start from there. Take away his 2 points, take away his dominant position, and go for a sweep. Now you're up, now you're on top. He's probably going to get out if you don't sink something in. So let's, instead of getting swept or getting just head picked from a wrestler,
Mm-hmm.
let him back up, pull again, right? We can go over game plans with that. But again, the big point of it is, if you're solid at a triangle, work more triangles.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you find that people, and I'm asking this because I know that I have done this way too much, and like American Nationals was one of the first times I really felt like I got out of this habit of focusing too much on something specific.
Yes.
Like I see that, okay, I am fighting Bo Nichols. I'm going to try to guillotine him. And it's just not available throughout the whole match.
Right.
And that's my whole mindset. And I get stuck on that. Do you
Right.
find that happens with people?
Yes, and that's where your coach comes in.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you need a good coach in the corner. You need to make what I call mid-match adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have mid-match adjustments. You have to say, your coach has to tell you, because you're not watching the clock
Mm-hmm.
for the most part,
Yeah.
right? You might look over on a break or something and see the clock, but you're not seeing this time dwindle down,
Mm-hmm.
right? So your coach needs to make a mental note in your head, whatever that code word is or whatever
Mm-hmm.
you're going to say to them, to say, hey, stop this crap, because you're getting nowhere with it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's change this over. Let's mid-match adjust this. Your positioning, your submission attempts, let's adjust what's going on in this match to change this for you. So that's where I think coaches should go over mid-match adjustments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like knowing your guy
Mm-hmm.
and knowing how to adjust him and how to get that through to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because you still might be 6 minutes in out of a 7-minute match with Bo Nickel and the score's 0-0. You're still going for a guillotine.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I have to constantly tell you in the corner, like, stop,
Yeah.
stop. Let's go to this. Let's go to this. Let's go to this, because this really active guy on top is going to beat you in the next minute on a ref decision. So,
Man, having good coaching is incredibly underrated.
yes.
I think probably in any sport, but I really think it is so underrated in jiu-jitsu because there are matches and there's a lot of, I probably should do a hour and a half long podcast on how to coach a jiu-jitsu match,
Yes,
because most
extremely
people,
difficult.
Man, most people have no idea how to do
Right.
it either. And, they all try the same thing and they just yell out moves that they see.
Mhm.
And that is such a bad mentality, a bad mindset of coaching. The coach is very broad. You know what I mean? You can't, it's hard. Very seldom am I ever specific when I am coaching. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we're just highlighting the game plan, doing it over and over. Or you're wrestling, control the insides, pointing out things. He's heavy on his toes. He's leaning back heavy.
Absolutely.
You know what to do with that information.
Right.
But I'm just pointing out what I see. Then maybe you are up, or maybe the score is tied and you're in the guy's guard. It's 2-2 and you're in the guy's guard. And you're like, as the coach, if we have 4 minutes left, my mindset shouldn't be to yell, we got to go right now.
Right,
Hurry,
right.
pass.
Yeah.
It's just understanding, hey, we are making a piece of art, and the competitor is the brush, and so we have to just kind of be very broad. We have to be yelling to them, and being able to teach that is something hard. We actually did that in one of our coaches meeting recently, and I could tell that a lot of the guys were like, "Oh, I've literally just been yelling techniques.
Right.
I've just been yelling, go for triangles."
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, that doesn't help me, because it's pretty simple. It's like, it doesn't help you because they hear that too.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Oh, and you can have, we do have some secret code words that we won't discuss on a podcast.
Can't tell anyone.
Yeah. And we can't. If you listen to more than 3 of my matches, you would know what our main one is.
So, again, with the whole mid-match adjustment thing, I was in Romania for Combat Worlds.
I wasn't there.
You weren't there.
Yeah, I was supposed. I lost.
You got foot swept a lot.
I did. Was it foot swept?
I'm pretty sure it was foot swept. Or
what was it that I
hip throws?
So he kept trying to throw me out of bounds. I feel like the downhill. Didn't I take a bad shot? No, I tried to flying armbar the guy. It was combat wrestling.
Yeah.
And apparently when you flying armbar and you miss and your shoulders hit the mat, you get 4 points up in combat wrestling rule set. And so the ball started rolling downhill from there. Regardless, I wasn't in Romania. Continue with your story.
Well, he had very, very good mat awareness, right? And if you start a move inside in bounds and finish it outside, it's still points. So he was very situationally aware of where he was. And that's where he scored on you a lot. Was, okay, I'm at the edge of the mat. If I just hit this little trip to his hip, that's a point. You know what I mean? So I want to keep it away from the middle, which was a very good game plan for him.
It was a very good game plan.
But anyways, I was in Romania, and I was in the finals against Kulikov again. And super strong, super big guy, the Bulgarian, and awesome dude. But my corner coaches, Nico Koliastasis and a couple other guys.
No Bob Jones is in this story, huh? Nobody has a normal name.
No.
Okay.
But they the mid-match adjustments that they made with me were Division I level. You know what I mean? Like the coaching that they had with me wasn't shoot, get up, that kind of thing. And I ended up losing on a step out. I stepped out of bounds in overtime, which ended up losing the match. But the adjustments that they were trying to make with me really was like, wow, this is crazy. This is really good stuff. And I made some of those adjustments, but I was getting beat.
Yeah. And I actually got to coach with Nico when you fought same guy. What was his name?
Kulikov.
Yeah, when you guys fought twice in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And so Nico and I coached together when they were on the feet. He was pretty much coaching. I was there. And when we were arguing calls, that was when I would jump in. And then when the match was on the ground, which it wasn't on the ground very often.
Not much.
Yeah, that's where I was in. Yeah. But I really noticed how good of a job he coached wrestling. He really understood to not be overly specific.
Yeah.
And that was something that, he just was highlighting things. I still remember he kept telling you, he's leaning on you. He's
watch your pressure.
Every time.
He's leaning, don't lean. Yeah.
Man, and just having that in your corner, that is one of the most beneficial things when it comes to competition. That's something like having Kyle in my corner, because he has literally trained with me for hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
And knows what I play, where I go, and so we have a pretty good way of communicating. And he can say things like "go to" and make up some random word, and I'll know what he means because we've trained with
each other so well.
And so having that is huge with a coach.
Right.
But if we just pull back to mindset just a little bit more, what does your 5 to 10 minutes before the match, what do you say to yourself? Like, what is your mental talk if you have it?
So I usually try to visualize my first two moves, 1st 2 to 3, right? I try to visualize my grips. I try to visualize my footwork, especially in the case that you do get flat feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'll pop right back into you if you're visualizing this 5 to 10 minutes before. Don't get flat feet. Don't stop moving. Get your grips the right way. Take smart shots. Don't do anything stupid right off the bat that's going to get yourself caught. You know, we were in, I don't know, some random state when I was a purple belt, and I was first match of the tournament, and everybody, they stopped. They didn't start the tournament. They did the purple belt bracket first, and everybody sat around and watched. I was the first match, and I'm beating this guy, 4-0, whatever the case may be.
I think it was 6-0.
Yeah, 6-0. And you know what I did was I stopped moving. I stopped engaging. I'm like, oh, I'm up. I'm good. I got 2 minutes left. I'm good. And I did that right before my match. I visualized my match, right? I visualized what I was going to do. I didn't visualize being up 6-0 and trying to stall out.
Yeah.
And he caught me. And that was, still proud to say, that was the last offensive point that has ever been scored on me. I haven't been scored on in brown belt. That was the only time I ever got scored on in purple belt. I've won every match except that one.
That had to be almost 4 years ago, correct?
Probably.
That's what I know. I know the whole reason we went is because I had a super fight.
Yeah.
And so we brought the whole team. I want to say that was like right at 4 years ago. That was when that was the same tournament that Casey broke that guy's arm.
Yes.
And that
almost murdered him.
Yeah, literally. Oh man, that was a bad one.
Yes.
But just to tell you guys the story, he did a straight arm lock. It was kind of close to an Americana straight arm lock. The guy's arm was kind of middle ground. He was bigger than the guy, and Casey's 280, and not a fat slow 280.
No,
and has this kind of grip. And the guy bridges towards him. So the rest of the guy's body goes towards Casey. That arm just stays there. And it pops really loud. Casey's response was to get up and run away. He ran away from the pain.
Yeah.
He's like, oh no, I don't want this guy's pain to get on me. I'm out of here. That guy also gets up. He yells out, so the match is over. But he gets up and he grabs his forearm, and it was actually not, his arm didn't break. He had dislocated his elbow.
Yeah.
And I actually, seeing in his rash guard, it's the last match of the day. All the other mats are put away. This dude's bone pops back into place when he grabs it. And I'm screaming. Everybody's screaming. I'm sitting right next to it, coaching this last match. We had a really good day competitively. And oh, this is the last finals. Let's get this win. Man, breaks this guy or dislocates this guy's arm. It's horrible. He pops it. He runs away too. Everyone's running away from this, and it was rough. That was a fun tournament though.
A story off of that was my first IBJJF tournament ever was Blue Belt No Gi Worlds in California. Don't know why I went. I wasn't good enough to be there, but I went. And I had gone to, a Naga or a Grappling Industries or whatever before that. But I'm like, you know what? Let's just go to Worlds.
Yeah.
Why not?
Screw it.
Let's just go in a 60-man bracket at IBJJF Blue Belt Adult Worlds. No big deal. And we get there and we go sit in the bleachers. And, there's, 18 mats. It's huge at the Pyramid. And I'm looking around. And there's at least 4 or 5 matches stopped because the guy's choked out, broken arm, whatever the case may be. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? There's medics everywhere, running around. And now, being in jiu-jitsu a long time now, I'm like, okay, well, you're at Worlds. I'm tapping a no choke. Put me out, But that was my first experience with IBJJF, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, that's always an interesting thing to see. Like, it's interesting to see when you're all doing kids classes and your kids are finishing classes playing dodgeball and stuff, and their parents are like, yeah, we want to do a jiu-jitsu competition. You're like, oh, okay. And so when they do all kids at the beginning, it's usually pretty tame, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I love. Like, Fuji does those. All kids matches first. Adults don't even show up until like 12 or 1 or something like that. Well, when they don't do that and kids just have a mat and then all the adult matches are going on and you're seeing guys get thrown into tables and get their arms broken and stuff, and you're watching little Billy go out,
Johnny.
to go out to compete. That's got to be a stressful situation. This is a true story. One time I competed. It was actually J.W. Wright was doing an in-school tournament.
Okay.
And we competed. He let me compete in it because we were Gracie Humaida at the time. And he's like, yeah, come in and compete. I had never really met him. I grappled Joey Walters in the first round, and he chokes me unconscious with a cross-collar choke. The funny thing is, my grandparents had come to watch the tournament.
Man.
My grandparents thought I died, and you know what they did? They just left. They were just like, oh, wow, Josh died.
Well, he's done.
Yeah, and my grandma was like, you know what? I got 14 grandkids.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, it's not that big of a
What's
deal.
13?
Yeah, exactly. And so, actually, cool story about it. It was double elimination, and it was like double elimination in the sense that you had to lose twice, not like you go into a loser's bracket, but everyone's fighting until everyone's lost twice. And I ended up coming back. I beat Joey. It was super close. And then I actually had Dustin Dennis was reffing the match, and he was coaching Joey while we were competing. It was like I had him in a loop choke, and he was like down next to him, like, Joey, you can get out of this. And I was like, wait a second, what is going on with this? And so it was an interesting one. But I ended up coming back. I got flying armbar in the final, which was no fun. But my grandparents thought I died, and they just left. They were just like,
head out.
Yeah, they were just like, man, good job, man. You
loved him.
Yeah,
but, see ya.
Yeah, what can we do now? I guess we got to get prepped for this funeral coming up. And so
they might have gone to make arrangements for you.
They might.
Super nice of them.
It could have just been like, my grandma, she's Filipino. They're pretty competitive. She might have just been like, he's a loser anyway. I'm glad he's dead.
Him in this family.
Yeah. And so. You never know. You never know with it. So just kind of back to just like kind of my last question about mindset. And so when something mid-match isn't going your way, how do you, because this is something that I think, it happens more at a high level. I don't see that you can kind of try the same thing at a lower level and it work 1 out of the 5 times you try it. It's just people aren't as good, right?
Yeah.
But when you get to higher levels, brown belt, black belt, even purple belt, and I go for something once or twice, like my opponent, and I missed it, my opponent knows, okay, that's what he's hunting.
Sure.
I'm going to stop it. How do you mentally make those mid-match adjustments? Like, what do you talk to yourself about in the middle of the match where you can make those adjustments?
Yeah. And that's 100% my mindset game is, if you're getting beat 16-0 and you've made multiple adjustments on your game, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
You're done, right? This guy's way better than you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just hope for the best. Let's score a couple points and let's get out of here and go eat some lunch.
Yeah, foot locks.
Yeah. Drop to a heel. I forgot where I was going with that.
But just you're middle of the match and you need to make an adjustment.
Yeah,
and it's important. It's relevant to make the adjustment.
Yeah, so you're getting beat that bad, you're going to lose. If let's say it's a close match. Let's say it's 2-2, and you got a minute left, right? Whether you're on top, you're on bottom, doesn't matter. That's where the grind comes in, man. That's where that grind is. That I know you're tired, and I've done it 100 times. I did it last year in Romania or 2 years ago in Romania. I know you're tired. You want to get out of here. You're done with this match, right? You are physically exhausted. But that's what plays into my head is I just spent the last 2 months killing myself to win, not to medal at this tournament. I don't care about medaling. I came here to win it, right? And I'm in the semis or I'm in the finals, and it's 2-2 with a minute left, and we're both exhausted. He's just hanging on into guard, right? That's where you turn it up. I mean, you give everything you have to do this, and that's coming from this 2 months, this 3 months of mentally and physically preparing for a match like this. That's why we do situational sparring. When I was coaching practice a couple weeks ago, I'm like, hey, it's 5-1 and you got a minute left. What are you going to give me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How much fight are you going to put out? Are you going to say, I'm down by 4? There's no way. There is a way. You know what I mean? Or if it's 2-2, I think this ref's going to give it to me. Let's say he's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't care what you think. The other guy thinks he put out as much effort as you did. Now you're leaving it in the ref's hands, which doesn't work out in your favor most of the time. You know what I mean? That's where that grind comes in. That, I always used to tell my wrestlers, I'm like, do not be afraid to get a black eye. Do not be afraid to break your nose. Do not be afraid to get a tooth knocked out. Did you win? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's been my mindset my whole life. That's why I have fake teeth. And I have cauliflower face. But at the same time, I've been in, 300 matches where it's 2-2 with a minute left.
Yeah.
And I out-hustled him. You know what I mean? I out-grinded him because of knowing that when I leave and go eat dinner, I'm going to be sitting there sulking or, you know what I mean? It's like I've worked so hard for this. What I feel like is so hard. We can measure that in a lot of different ways.
Of course.
But what I feel is so hard. I've worked so hard for this tournament. I've worked so hard for matches like this to give it up and say, I got a minute left. I think I've outworked him. Let's let the ref decide.
I've talked about on the show, just using those things, using everything as practicing your mental toughness.
Yes.
Because you're not mentally tough or not. It's not like that. You're not born with it. It is a skill, just like jiu-jitsu is a skill.
You have to train yourself to do that.
You do. And you get it sharp again when you start to prep to compete. And I think that is one of the toughest things for, like I was saying about American Nationals. I had just come off losing at the Fuji World Pro. I was frustrated and I'm like, I've got to, I'm in shape. I have a month. I'm going to push really hard this month. And, I pushed every class, every time I was training, pushing really hard. And I went out and I lost in the final, but there was not a second of the final that I didn't believe that I was going to sweep.
Right.
And it was...
I believed it when I was watching it. I'm like, oh, any second now.
And so, happened, Yeah, and that was... Maybe even to my detriment, I think I should have, looking at it, I should have stopped running into the same wall. Yeah, I should have. And so, not to blame my coaches, but... my mid-match adjustments, but
mid-match adjustments.
Just being able to, to be able to fight in that didn't come from me just being in the middle of the match and just saying I'm going to be tough here.
Right.
It came from the prep, and I didn't have a thought that was like, every thought was just, I worked too hard to not get this. Absolutely. I've got to fight it, and I probably came down afterwards. I came home. My immune system was probably compromised from having trained so hard. I got COVID. But it was worth it. I'm not going to talk about is it the best thing in the world for you health wise,
right?
But it's cool. I see.
Well, another mental aspect of losing. After losing your Fuji World Pro, this last one, and then coming back and barely losing at a very high level tournament. It's like, a lot of these guys need to sit back and think about your mental aspect of what just happened, right? That's what, instead of your physical ability, think about what did Josh do to come off a loss and then come back a couple weeks later and do that?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you lose, I don't want you to be, dang, I'll get him next time.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to be pissed off at yourself
Mm-hmm.
for not performing the way you know you could,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then get over it.
Yeah.
Give it 3 days, 4 days, and think about all the places you screwed up on and beat yourself up. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to beat myself up from screwing up. And I'm going to really sulk in it. And I'm going to feel sorry for myself. And I'm going to make excuses. Oh, he was doing this. He was doing that. He didn't let this happen. Whatever the case may be. Blame it on the ref. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And then get over it.
Yeah.
Time's up. You know what I mean? Stop talking about it. Stop being about it. Train harder. Train smarter.
Mm-hmm.
Work on your defaults, right? But get over it.
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
that's exactly what you did, right? You got over it. You might have sulked in it. You might have been upset with yourself. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Be mad at yourself. And then overcome that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then look at why you lost, and that's kind of in my mind, I actually just released a podcast about this. Every loss is on you.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you lost a ref's decision that you don't feel like you should have lost, whether you lost from whatever, every loss you have something you can learn from.
Yeah.
And but you do have to have a negative outlook towards losing and then end it, right? Because if you look at it too long, then you overly obsess about it, right? If you're only thinking, then in your mind you become a loser.
Yes, right.
And so you do have to say, okay, what mistakes did I make? Now, I'm not a finished product. Where do I go from here? Yeah. And so I think that is that's super helpful for people that are athletes. And honestly, you can use all of these same mindsets in the gym.
Absolutely.
If you are not a competitor, there is no negative to becoming more mentally tough when it comes to just training in the gym. You will train more, you will train harder, and you will be able to overcome losing so much better.
Yeah.
And that is like, all we're doing in jiu-jitsu at first is just losing a bunch and then making adjustments. Why did I lose? Why did this happen?
Right.
And so I think that is just an important look.
You look at Terry Brands. When Terry Brands lost in, I don't know, the World Cup or whatever, in like 96 or whatever year it was, he lost to Kendall Cross.
Okay.
The first thing his dad told him when he got home was, "You got what you earned." I'm like, Terry Brands, are you kidding me? You got what you earned. That's the hardest working guy I've ever seen in my life, right? Mm-hmm. And I took that to heart a lot, because it's like, you look at a guy like Terry Brands, or you look at any crazy, unbelievably successful competitor, and you're like, that's the hardest working guy I've ever seen. Somebody else worked harder. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So that's how I've always looked at it, is you got what you earned. You know what I mean? And there's always going to be somebody bigger, better, tougher than you, right? But you do truly get what you earn. Mm-hmm. You get what you work for. If you're, I slack off in practice a lot too, but when it comes time to work hard, there's a switch, right? There's a switch you have to put, switch over and figure it out and say, okay, this isn't, we have 6 minutes to drill a knee cut. I'm going to hit as many as I can, as perfect as I can in that amount of time. There's no talking. There's no, taking my time to tie my belt and all this stuff. I'm going to work hard. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get what I earn. You know what I mean? And that mental aspect comes to me later on too, when I'm in those matches where it's 2-2. I worked harder than you, and I'm going to make sure that that's proven. You know what I mean? Always thought that way.
That makes sense to me, man. I really I appreciate you being on. That normally we finish with, how do you suck less at jiu-jitsu, but we've talked about that before. You've been on the podcast. Yeah. I should figure out some secondary question as I have people back on the show. But I'll just finish with this. Is there anything you want to say to finish?
No. If you're a competitor, think about your mental state. Mm-hmm. Think about where you want to be mentally a month before the match, 2 weeks before the matches, and then 5 minutes before the match. I want you to think about that, where you want your mind to be. And that is going to start training your mind to be in that mindset, right? So I want you to look at that bracket, get nervous, right? Train harder, right? Look at what he does. Look at what these guys do. Know it, but work your stuff harder, right? Be better than him at what you're good at. 5 minutes before the match, I'm going to win this. Say it in your head. I'm going to win this match. Today is my day. You know, the nerves are gone. I don't care what anybody else thinks. This life is over besides this next 6 minutes. Nothing in my life matters except this match right now. Those are my steps.
That's perfect, man. Thank you again for being on. That was really good. I think people are going to really appreciate the mindset advice of this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Of course. So we have 2 more promotions to give out. I think a lot of people already know who these are going to go to. But, you know, like a lot of times they say that getting a black belt is like a journey. And, you know, like if you guys ever listen to my podcast, which you should, I always disagree with everything everybody says about jiu-jitsu. And I would say that it's not a journey, it's a transformation. People end up becoming so much different, obviously in the art, but even outside of the art. And it's been really cool to know both of the people that are going to get promoted today, you know, and be around them for, I mean, pretty early since I started jiu-jitsu. One of them I've known for 13 years and the other I think around 10. And it's cool that Kyle came out because both of them were under him at one point, and then they abandoned him because they don't care about him. But we're going to give Eric and Derek their black belts.
Thanks everybody for all the hard rounds and being really mean to me. It's an awesome experience. Pretty cool to get it.